So this is week 8 and it's on a rolling programme. And the 8 weeks are all on the internet, so you can look up and you can see links into other sites like Diet Doctor and ditchthecarbs.com, which are very useful. Now the thing about all of you is that you will probably have something, a hormonal problem called insulin resistance. That means that if you eat a healthy British diet, you won't lose weight. Or you'll lose it and then it'll plateau off and then it'll go up again. Or it'll even go up to what it was before. But this is a different way of eating and it's called low carb. And so one of the ways I explain about it is with these little cards. So we can also pass those around. We haven't got one. And it's these cards are a way of thinking about food, about real food, and thinking about unprocessed food. Now music will stop in a minute.
That's the parcel.
So tell me, how many of you have been on doing this? How many of you are new today? Okay, great. Okay, and how many are already doing the low carb diet? Yeah, great. Okay, so I'd like one of you who's been doing it for a while to talk about what it's like. Just briefly, you know, what the benefits have been.
Very good.
Yes, great. And say a bit more.
I eat very, very healthy. Oh, I thought I did. I make everything myself, you know, all my food, and I just wasn't feeling right, just wasn't feeling well. And I came to see you, and the next thing I was here.
Yes.
And I've lost well over a stone in 6 weeks.
And before that, you would have thought you had a healthy diet.
A very healthy diet. I used to have special K in the morning with fruit on the top. Don't have no special K. Just have a small bowl of fruit. I don't have anything that's got wheat, flour, sugar, and because of my problem I can't have dairy products. So lots of people here can nibble on cheese. I can't eat cheese because it makes me phlegmy and cotton bad chest. But I find it very weird that I can have bacon and egg and tomatoes. I tend to have that about 11. I have my little bowl of fruit when I first get up. Then I have that. And then later on, I have got accustomed to eggs and avocado. I like those. I've always eaten salad. I've always eaten chicken, salmon. I like celery now with Philadelphia cheese. I just very, very careful. But I thought that I ate healthy.
Yes.
Because I cooked everything. Never ever buy processed food.
Okay. So a lot of people want to take a seat. Who's got the register? Oh, here it is. If all of you could sign the register before you leave, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Now, a healthy British diet, when people talk to me, will be cereal for breakfast, a sandwich, whole wheat sandwich for lunch and maybe some fruit, and then for tea people will have things like meat and vegetables, maybe spaghetti bolognese, maybe chicken and pasta, something like that. Now, this way of eating is totally different to that. So for breakfast, you would never have cereal or bread. You would have something that was on the green circle. So it could be meat, as in, you know, the Germans eat plates of meat, apparently, for breakfast. It could be fish, like old-fashioned kippers or smoked salmon. It could be whole-fat yogurt, which is still a very low-fat product, but people think of it as being a high-fat product, but it's not. And people have it with berries usually. You can't, Maria, you can't have yogurt, but you have the berries, but you could have yogurt and berries. But the most common thing that people have for breakfast is eggs, something along the line of eggs. And they might have eggs with asparagus dippers, or they might have scrambled eggs and salad, or they might have poached eggs and spinach. All sorts of eggy breakfasts are fine. And there are questions that arise from that, but basically that's the breakfast. Breakfast is the biggest change. Lunch is the next biggest change because sandwiches aren't advised of any description, whether whole wheat or any other. We generally advise that you have whatever you would have in your sandwich plus a salad. If you're not hungry, we say don't bother eating, just wait till later on. And you could have any meat, any fish as a base, plus some vegetables, you know, if you wanted to do it that way rather than having a salad, especially for winter. Soups are fine, but mostly the green soups rather than the red ones. Tomato-based soups might have too much sugar in them. And if you make your own soup, that's ideal, with green vegetables, above ground vegetables, or mushrooms, green veg like courgettes, broccoli. absolutely fine.
So can you make your own soup with tomatoes as long as it's homemade?
Well, tomatoes, you will see. Now, this is a new thing I've got this week, so excuse me, I don't know if any of you can reach it. Yeah, slightly. Okay, so you can overdo it with tomatoes, because tomatoes, if you have a lot of them, especially if it's a soup and a very moorish soup, you might just eat too many tomatoes. So this is a book called Carbs and Cals. You don't care about the cals. This isn't a calorie counting regime. You never try and balance your calories in and calories out. It's not like that. You just gauge whether it's working according to whether you're losing weight and whether your blood sugar is normal. It's very important that you have the diabetes letter, and that you measure your blood sugars if you're diabetic. So we are aiming for, this is the important thing with the carbs, we're aiming for about 30 grams of carbohydrate a day, which is not very much, but if you have eggs and bacon and mushrooms, you've got very, very few. You've probably only got 2 to 4 grams of carbohydrate in that meal. And you can see it in here. This is the lovely thing about the Carbs and Cals book. So it's got pictures of things like, here we go, a breadstick. So a single breadstick is 2 grams of carbs. It's not very filling, not very big. But an egg, 0. 2 eggs is still 0. 3 eggs is still 0. Something if I just randomly pick, open it anywhere. Okay, so potato salad. Potato salad, a tiny amount is 7 grams. So generally potatoes aren't on. And if anybody doesn't want a book, if anybody wants an app, you've got Carbs and Cals that you can get on your phone as an app. And just look it up easily. They've got combination meals as well, which is rather nice.
John, can I just ask, you know the mackerel in tomato sauce?
Oh yes.
Would they be, because I quite often have those for breakfast.
I think that's probably fine. Just look on the back, like with this food here. If you look on the back, you'll look at the food label, and it will say carbohydrate 1.3 grams. That's per 100 grams, so it's tiny. There's not much in meat. Now, if you look at that fish, I think fish and tomato sauce. I've seen those sardines and mackerel and tomato sauce. I have a feeling I've looked at that before, and it's very low.
I know
So-
we have them on toast, so
Yeah.
I'll ditch the toast.
Yeah, if you have it on spinach,
I reckon have it with scrambled egg.
yeah, you could indeed. And we're looking at about 10 grams per meal. But some of the meals, if you look in the Carbs and Cals book, some of the meals, breakfast particularly, if they're based on eggs, are very, very low. So you could probably have a few more. You could probably have, 4 or 5 in the morning, and then you might have 10 to 15 at lunchtime. And try and keep the evening meal fairly light. Don't have your heavier carbohydrate meal in the evening. But this does, it's all alphabet. There's a good index at the back. They've got things like simple things like raw onions. You can imagine there's not much in that. 3 grams for quite a lot of onions. But then if you get something like macaroni, it's 11 grams, so nearly 4 times as much for a very, very small amount of macaroni. So we don't advise pasta. And if you're diabetic and you check your blood sugar after pasta meal, generally speaking, your blood sugar will be too high. We're aiming for 4 to 7. That's the range of blood sugar that we're looking at. So a lot of you will be quite accustomed to having levels of, 7 plus, maybe over 10, maybe even over 15 sometimes. But it's very easily achievable to get your blood sugars between 4 and 7 when you have a low carb way of eating. And if you think you're having a low carb meal and it gives you a quite high blood sugar, weigh the foods, and just make sure, because the weights make a big difference. So for instance, let's see, that's probably a good one to show you. So this is mushroom risotto. So if you have an 80 gram portion, it's 14 grams of carbs. So that's over your limit. So you'd need to have a tiny portion and just some vegetables with it if you wanted to have risotto, which is why we tend to base our meals on meat or fish or cheese or eggs rather than on rice. If you had even not that big a portion, that doesn't look that big to me, but that's 28 grams. So that's nearly your whole daily allowance in one plate of rice, which is why rice isn't such a good thing. Now, I'm going to go back to, really in a sense, to the beginning, because what makes this different to, any sort of Slimming World, Weight Watchers, any other previous way of eating that you followed? Well, one of the reasons is that we call it a way of eating rather than a diet. It's a way of life. And so my colleagues who've been doing this for 5 years have got people who are still coming who are normal weight and who are teaching their families, teaching their husbands, wives, children, grandchildren, and they're all moving, the whole family's moving towards a better way of life. Another thing that's different is that we ask you to start with an idea, and the idea is written on those little cards that I gave you. And it says, a year from now and you're a lot healthier. What does healthier mean to you? And it'll mean different things to different people. And then think, how will you feel when you're a lot healthier? How will you look when you're a lot healthier? What will you be able to do when you're a lot healthier? And people choose all sorts of things, you know, that really different goals. But it's holding on to those goals and thinking about them. You know, when you're making your choices, when you're at the supermarket, when you're making your meals. And you may have goals around, you know, your family and how you want your family to get healthier. It may not just be about you. What about the people who've been here for a while, have said all sorts of things, and sometimes I feel I've put them on the spot. If anybody wants to shout up and say, you know, what their goals are, please do, you know, just let me know that you want to talk about it. But people have said things like, they'll have more energy, and they'll be less tired. They'll be able to fit into smaller size clothes. A lot of people I find, especially women, have got, you know, wardrobes, or part of wardrobes of clothes where they fitted into the clothes a few years ago and they don't fit into them, but they don't want to get rid of the clothes. They think we'll get into some smaller clothes. A lot of people want to get back to the level of fitness that they had before, like being able to walk up hills, whereas they struggle coming over a bridge now, whereas before they would have been fine. Or they might like going walking in the countryside and they have to choose the flat walks rather than the walks up hills. So that's another quite common one. Off medication. So I've had people at this group we started it in February. I've had people come off all the medication and appear to be non-diabetic, which is just amazing, and I didn't even know that was possible, but it's lovely. So that has happened, and it's not uncommon. I don't know if any of you, we do check some readings. Apart from weight, we do some blood tests, and we do this special blood test for diabetics and pre-diabetics called an HbA1c. So a normal level would be something like 37. We've had people with levels in the hundreds who've got down to 37, which is great. And it's very common to have levels in the 50s and to get down into the 30s, so that's great. On your way out, those little cards have got lists of the measurements to take, maybe now if you're just starting on this, and then maybe in 6 weeks' time to show your progress. There's no hard and fast rule. You could do it in 3 months or a year, you know, when you feel that you've made a difference. So those are the sorts of things. They've also said things about holidays. You know, somebody said she wanted to ride on a camel. Somebody else said that she wanted to go on theme park rides and be there. You know, apparently you can get a really super ticket that takes you there all day, and you can go on all the mega rides and have fast passes through, and that's what she wanted to do. So people have very different goals. So any questions?
Is there a limit to how many eggs you should have in a day?
That's
Is
good.
this kind of thing making you think you shouldn't have too many eggs? Or you
Yes.
duck?
Yes, yeah. So I find most people are absolutely fine if they have 2 or 3 eggs in a day. One of my colleagues in Manchester my colleagues text me quite a lot about these things and said, my patient has 14 eggs a day and his cholesterol's a bit high. I thought, yeah, yes, it doesn't sound very sensible really to have that many eggs. But most people manage fine on 2. I mean, it depends on the size of you as well. You know, if you're not very 1 or 2 eggs might be enough and take you through to lunchtime or beyond. But if I've got a man of 6'4", you know, he might have 3 eggs, a couple of pieces of bacon, some mushrooms and tomatoes, and that'll take him through till the evening meal. So it depends on various things and how strenuous your job is and whether you're doing exercise later in the day and things like that. But yeah, 2 eggs is no problem. Anybody here worried about cholesterol if they eat eggs?
Yes, I was.
Mhm.
My cholesterol was very high.
Yes, yeah. And do you know what it is yet now?
No, I haven't
No,
had a
not
blood
yet.
test since.
Okay, so you probably gather from the papers that cholesterol is a very controversial area, and we're learning more and more about cholesterol. For a start, you'd be dead without it. Your cells need cholesterol to actually be cells. And I was in the shops the other day and I was very confused because one newspaper headline said too many people on statins, and the one underneath said more people need to go on statins. And I was thinking, well, that just says it all really. My colleague, Dr. Unman, who's been doing this for 5 years with his patients, he has checked numerous cholesterols and other lipids, and he says 90% of people get a better cholesterol level on this way of eating. Now, if you're one of the 10%, strangely, the 10% of people who get worse cholesterol tend to be really skinny and really athletic, and not at all what you'd expect. And I think it's something to do with they've got no fat stores at all, and so when they eat a lot of fat, they've got more fat in their circulation, and they need to eat fat because they've got no fat. And this way of eating is called low carb healthy fat. And when you're trying to lose weight, you're not expected to eat a lot of fat, because you've got body fat and you can use your body fat up instead. But when some people do actually get too thin on this way of eating, and when they get very thin, they do need to eat more fat because they don't have any. Yeah. So, yeah. Any other questions? Does anybody want to share any of their goals? You know, what sort of things they'd look forward to a year from now, and what healthier would look like to them? Might give somebody some ideas.
It's more of a feeling. I want to feel in control.
Yes.
And yeah, have more energy, but basically say like, this is what I want. I want to lose a stone. I want to get below 12, which is going back years and years and years. But just to be in control.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than like something that I've always like yo-yo. I've basically been big, and I've just thought, oh yeah, I've always been this way. Always am going to be this way. I just thought, forget it. I'm doing something.
Yes. Have any of the rest of you felt out of control with your weight?
Definitely.
Yeah. I find a lot of people come to me and they say, you know, I don't understand it. I eat healthily. I do exactly what I should do. I have 5 a day. I eat whole wheat cereal. I don't eat, and a lot of people say to me, I don't eat that much, honestly, and I believe them. When you've got a metabolism like this, it's a very particular sort of metabolism. It's different to the people who never put weight on. But when you've got a metabolism like this, you don't need to eat much food to maintain your weight. And you can have quite small meals and maybe not even eat that often, and your weight can stay the same. And it's like turning a key in a lock doing low carb, because when you keep your carb level low enough, your body metabolism changes and it starts using up your fat stores. And it's what's meant to happen. It's a bit like, you know, hibernating in the winter when an animal isn't eating any food at all. They start using up their fat stores. Fruit. I was reading recently that bears eat fruit before they go hibernating. And fruit is not an aid to weight loss at all. It's got fibre, it's got vitamins, it's nice, it's a treat. And when you go low carb, you tend to feel that fruit's a lot sweeter. And you have it really as, you know, at the end of a meal rather than at snacks through the day. And so the 5 a day thing doesn't really, it's good to eat lots of vegetables, you know, keep yourself regular. But thinking in terms of carbohydrate and weight, you better just stick to the above ground vegetables like cabbages, cauliflower, mushrooms, kale, any above leeks, any above ground vegetables. But you'll see in the Carbs and Cals book that even things like carrots aren't so bad. Parsnips are worse. Potatoes, yes, I wouldn't bother unless you had. If you lost an awful lot of weight and you were having a meal where there were, say boiled potatoes available or whatever, you might have one small one. But you'll see in the Carbs and Cals book or any other carb counter that you need to stick to a very small quantity.
What about squash? Is that above, does it grow above?
Yeah. Squash isn't, but it's not too bad butternut squash. And some pumpkins better actually. Yeah, so I'll just
I'll
tell you
what to do with the pumpkin.
Yes, other than the pie. I think you can just chop it up and bake it in the oven. Squash 101. There must be different sorts of squashes. Anybody else here eat squash? Yeah? Have you checked your blood sugar after eating squash?
I don't do blood sugar.
You don't do blood sugar. You're not diabetic. Do you check your blood sugar?
I haven't eaten any yet, but I've got 3 to eat before I go away.
Oh, right.
Have you ever done any blood tests? So like 50% of us aren't pre-diabetic, or we just like we want to have a different lifestyle. Have you ever done sugars on people who probably will end up being pre-diabetic or diabetic at some point if they've got like high risk factors? Have you ever done? Are there trials? So when I've researched it, there doesn't seem to be trials on anybody that doesn't have that issue. So because we don't have that technology, unless you go and get your own, I've never checked my sugars. So
Yes.
and you have to be like half dead to get your doctors to check your sugars. So I asked them in that van,
yeah.
and they said, "Oh, you don't meet the criteria." I said, "I do."
Mm.
No. I said, "But you've got blood from my finger for cholesterol. Surely to God you can do a sugar. It's one test." Well, no, you have to meet this criteria. And I think it'd be interesting to see how people's sugars are different if they haven't got into that pre-diabetic state.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of people here will be either diabetic or pre-diabetic. There'll be a few that aren't either. But in a sense, we're all pre-diabetic in the UK because the society has gone from diabetes of 1% to 7% in the time in 30 years, which is a really big. In America, it's going up towards maybe 10 to 14%. Some areas of UK, it's that. And then the pre-diabetics are sort of running along at another 15%. So you're right, there's a very individual response, and you could buy yourself a blood sugar machine and you could check it, or if you've got a relative who's got one who'll lend it to you, you can check your blood sugars. It's highly variable what happens, but what we do know is the blood sugar reading we check for diabetics and pre-diabetics is called the HbA1c. So who knows their HbA1c? Yes?
Well, it's 57 at the moment. Well,
Right.
no, it has been 57.
Yes. What's the highest it's
but,
been?
Last month when I had that checked, it was 84.
Right.
So doctors increased my metformin
Yes.
to 4 tablets a day.
Right. So yes, so that's brought you down to 57.
No.
Oh.
I was 57.
Ah.
I have been for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Round about between 52 and 57.
Mhm.
But when I had it done last month, had gone up to 84.
Mm.
And he didn't know why. I couldn't tell him that I'd done anything different than I normally do.
Mm.
But I've never been offered a blood sugar machine to check my sugars, so I wouldn't know that it's...
Right, now this is a really big change, so if you haven't taken one already, there you go.
Thank you.
This is a very, very big change, so it's very important that diabetics check the blood sugars 1 to 2 hours after they've eaten, so that they learn. So if you get a little notebook, and same with everybody who is going to check the blood sugar, have a notebook, write down what's in your meal, and then how long after, and check it roughly between 1 and 2 hours, and write down the reading, and then you will learn the effects of different meals on your body. So for instance, one of my patients, an expert patient, if he has porridge, it will go up to 10. So he doesn't bother with porridge unless he's going for a run, because when he goes for a run it only goes up to 7. But mostly if he's sitting at his desk, he will eat eggs and bacon and things like that, or maybe kippers, and that will keep his blood sugar between 4 and 7. And we made a mistake, and I'll hold my hand up, being part of the medical profession. First of all, we assumed people weren't capable of change, and we might as well just give them drugs. And that's sad, because they are capable of change. And the second thing was that they couldn't learn from blood sugar meters. You know, I think somebody did a study once that said, oh, it doesn't make any difference. But they didn't think that it would make difference to some people, quite a lot of people. And certainly my expert patient Heath, my colleague really, because he comes and does talks for me, and he was a proper diabetic with blood sugars in the sort of 11 to 15 range. And he's an engineer. I don't know if there are any engineers here, but engineers like getting to root causes of problems and solving them. And he worked out with his blood sugar machine that which foods he could eat and keep his blood sugar normal. And he has continuous monitoring. You can even, if you want to spend money, you can actually have a continuous monitor on. His continuous monitoring, and his blood sugar is like a flat line in the normal range. You wouldn't know he was diabetic. But if he has sandwiches and fruit for lunch, even whole wheat bread, it will go up to 14, just like that. So he's still diabetic, but for as long as he's very determined to just eat things that keep his blood sugar low, because you get a lot less complications, you've got more energy, less tired, that sort of thing. So that's the purpose of the meters. And everybody should have a meter. So if you've got friends, if you have other groups through the winter, I'm hoping there'll be a patient group that starts up. Talk to people. If they haven't got a meter, the meters are free. They cost the practice nothing. And then all you need are the strips. And if you're not diabetic, you could join if you're worried about diabetes, you could join diabetes.co.uk. And diabetes.co.uk has a 10-week programme. That's the other thing. If through the winter it's dark and you don't want to come out, and you know, you might not want to come to the patient group, you might want to wait till the spring when we've got a doctor group running again. But you can do this 10-week programme on diabetes.co.uk. It's a low-carb programme. It's free. They'll give you a free meter. And you can do it as a healthcare worker. They'll give you free meters as well. I think they'll probably give it to anybody who is worried about diabetes. And you just have to buy your own strips. Yeah. And just check it, because sometimes your blood sugars may be too high. I don't know what you think about this, but this is my idea about blood sugars. That we decide at a certain level that people are diabetic or not. But you think about it, that's quite artificial, isn't it? And so it's not really a yes or no, it's a spectrum. So if you check an HbA1c, say in yourself, and you're not diabetic or pre-diabetic, now it might be, say, 37. But after you've lost your weight and you have done low carb for a few months, it might be 31. It might be 29.
And will they be, I had mine done before I came here, but they just said it was fine. They didn't say the
What?
level.
Yeah.
My HbA1c, they said you're not pre-diabetic yet because of high risk of diabetes.
Yes.
But they didn't say
Yeah.
what it was, so
Yeah.
I just went,
Just,
okay.
yeah. Just
Will they redo it if you ask them? Because
oh yes,
sometimes
just
they
say,
might.
well, you've been on the low carb programme, and could you have it checked again? I'm not I hope they will. I would. I'd do a form for you, no problem. And then you can see. And what I've realised is that children in America now have got a lot of them do this even when they're type 1 diabetics, and they're getting such perfect control that their HbA1c is better than mine. And mine was 33 when I last checked it, and their children there have got HbA1cs of 29, and that's how good control they can get. And they've got a little group called Type 1 Grit, because they think of themselves as being very tough. Yeah. So I'll just let you have a think about any more questions.
To look on that, when you were saying about, when that lady was saying about has anyone who's not diabetic done a test? I'm not very good at remembering things, and I watch some of these programmes on TV, but there was a programme, I don't know if any of you remember, and it was a link to diabetes and lack of sleep.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone saw it.
Yes.
And it was quite
If you
conclusive,
had it,
wasn't
it was on a programme last night again about it, wasn't it? They measured people's how old they were, if they were like the body age, and they said, don't they, about less than 8 hours sleep
Right.
increases your risk.
Okay.
Because I think because it's
It's
to
stressful
do
not to
with your
sleep.
stress
Yeah.
levels, and
Yeah.
they send everything up, don't they?
Yeah. I want to show you something, because it is related to sleep, because this isn't just about food. We do different things in this programme. Like we've got a behavioural change person coming next week, and she talks to people about sugar addiction and about other processed food addiction and about how you can get over it. And we've got mindfulness, so we do sort of like deep breathing, not quite meditation, but deep breathing and relaxation. And we talk about trying to get better sleep, trying to go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time each day. Because if you get a good sleep pattern, that really helps with your blood pressure. It helps with your blood sugar. It helps you get over, push your diabetes into remission. All these things help. But I think if I can just get in behind here, I think I've got a list of the things. If you're not sleeping well, it does tend to raise your stress hormones like adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, and those things may lead to higher levels of what's called insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is when your hormone insulin isn't working properly, and the levels rise and you tend to put weight on, which is a problem. So these are the sorts of things that we cover in the programme, and you can look, even though you've come along, this is week 8 today, but even though you come in week 8 and you may not be able to come every week, you can look at the website that's on the little cards, and you can work your way through each of the weeks, and it's got links in. So don't forget this
I'm trying to.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So when you look at the website, you'll see there are ideas for breakfast, lunches, dinners, snacks, alcohol and soft drinks, eating out, holidays. In fact, holidays we're going to talk about a bit tonight. birthdays and celebrations, and also something for fermented foods, because you're only really, let me see, I say you're only really about 1/10 you, you're about 9/10 what's called the microbiome. It's the collective name for all the bugs in your body, and they're very much concerned with digestion, with your immune system, and making you healthy. And so when you eat differently, you change your microbiome, and it changes your cravings. So some people say to me, I've got a real problem with sugar. I know it's not good for me. I know it's not good for me, but I can't help myself. Well, what I say is you can't help yourself yet. Okay, and this course gives you ideas about how you're going to help it. And so some of it is just thinking, right, I'm going to try and give it up tomorrow, sort of thing, and not buy the stuff in and give away all the stuff that's in the house, and tell people I'm not, just please don't buy it for me for a while, I'm going to have time off. But when you stop eating sugar, you change this thing called your microbiome enormously, and it takes about 3 weeks to change. And in that 3 weeks, you'll probably find it really tough. You might not. Some people cut it down gradually, and they don't notice it. Particularly if they substitute protein foods, sometimes that really helps. But some people find it really tough. But when you change this microbiome, then your cravings really go away, and it takes about 3 or 4 weeks. And once you've got through that, it isn't so hard, is it? The people who are sort of 4 weeks, 5 weeks in, or 8 weeks in, you're able to look at things and not, you can look at a box of chocolates and think, I'm not interested. Yeah.
Well, I haven't, this is my first night, but about 9 months ago, I decided I needed to do something drastic because I was 3 stone bigger than I am now. And I was on a roller coaster of destruction, basically. And I couldn't lose weight, and it was getting me down. And I thought I need help, and I went and had hypnotherapy at Cheshire Natural Health. And that kick-started me into feeling that I wasn't doing it on my own, I'd paid to have it done, so, and that really helped me. And then now, this long on, I've lost 3 stone and 3 pounds.
Wow.
So I feel so much better. But when I look at this, I saw Dr. McCormack yesterday to do with my hand, carpal tunnel, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then we got discussing this, and I said I wanted to lose another stone around my stomach and things, and I asked for advice, so she told me to come along. But when I look at this, it's a lot of what I did without really realising, because I didn't go to Slimming World or Weight Watchers. I just kind of moved more, went for a walk every Thursday with my friends, parked the car differently and walked a bit more. Got rid of sugars mainly, and carbs a bit, but went for butter on a crumpet and things like that as my treat. But I've kind of done it without really,
not really knowing.
not really realising, but it does work.
Mm.
And what I'd say is, I can eat things now like carrots and sweet corn. It's too sweet. I'll push them to one side because you taste change.
That's a very good point. And I say it's like a resetting your sweetometer. So now if I eat a banana, it tastes very sweet enough, and I would only have half a banana. And sweet, chocolates. If I had one at Christmas or something, I would sort of, if I ate one, that would be, I might not bother, if you know what I mean. Half of one might do me. I find that, it's sort of the sweetness just takes you back. So it is a gradual process. It's a gradual process, and I know from my colleagues in other parts of the country that people start this and they generally like it, and they come to some of the classes but not all of them, because life's like that, isn't it? And I think our classes in the past for people who are diabetic have been a bit inflexible. You've got to come for 6 weeks and it starts in such and such a date and finishes in such and such a date.
I've never ever been offered a class.
Have you not?
No.
Very few people choose to go to them even when they're offered. And I don't know if it's because of the lack of flexibility, but that was my idea about having this and saying, look, it's going on the internet, you can come once or you can come 10 times, whatever you feel like. We'll do it as a project and then we'll evaluate it and then we'll start again. And so I'm sorry you haven't been invited to one. These ones are flexible, and you can email me as well and just ask me if you've got any questions. You can also, because of the way we set it up, you can talk to the group before it starts and just compare notes.
Well, I can say when I came to see you when I wasn't well, things had gone wrong. And I said what I ate. I didn't eat a lot then. But I did just have cereal on the morning and thought that was it. but since coming here, I've not touched cereal since.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you eat more food now?
I eat better, and I go every Thursday to keep fit and get weighed on the morning yet, but I'm never sure about the scales really.
Mm-hmm.
But all my friends used to say, but you don't eat well,
Mm-hmm.
you don't eat a lot, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But now I do, and I make sure I have a proper breakfast.
Good. A lot of it is about nourishing yourself. And I think as a society we thought in terms of eating just enough food and exercising just enough so our weight either goes down gradually or it stays steady. And we've not really thought in terms of nourishing ourselves with food so much. And some of us will do, but as a society we're taught that, you know, if you eat little enough you will lose weight. And then you think, well, what's wrong with me because I'm not eating very much and I'm not losing weight. And also I'm not even feeling well because I'm not eating enough or not eating the right things. So this is very much a way of eating about nourishing your body and thinking about what you need. Like everybody needs protein to build up muscles and to replace the cells that they lose. Everybody needs fats for building cells, but you don't need carbohydrate.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. you don't need, give me a sausage. You don't need carbohydrate because your body can make it. So if you ever have a doctor or a nurse, a dietitian who says, but you have to eat carbohydrate, and some people are guilty of saying this to particularly to diabetics, you have to eat carbohydrate. The first thing you say is, well, I eat a lot of vegetable carbohydrates. And then the second thing, if they persist, is, of course, your body can make carbohydrate through gluconeogenesis, or even say there's a very long word and it means your body can make sugar from fats and proteins. So you don't need to worry about not having enough carbohydrate because your body makes it. But in the transition, if any of you change tomorrow, just like that, and you've got a standard British diet and you change tomorrow, you will probably get what's called low carb flu, which can make you feel achy, headachy, just not so well. And so it's up to you, but you might want to just go learn about it, read the website, maybe get a book, check your blood sugars and write down your normal meals and what blood sugars you're getting. Don't be alarmed, just maybe chip away at it, have smaller portions and alter things according to the way I've been describing. But if you do it gradually over the course of, say, 6 weeks, then you're not probably going to get the low carb flu. But if you do it overnight, you will, and it lasts up to about 3 weeks and then goes away. And some people like that. Some people's personalities just are very much all or nothing. Right, I'm going to do it. Cold turkey, I'm going to just go low carb and that's it. And they just put up with the symptoms. But I didn't. I did it slowly when I did it. So, how are we doing for time?
Can I ask you about fats?
Yes.
Because, you know, within it, the fats in meat and things like that, would you cut all the fat off sort of meats and things before you cook them, as you normally would? Or
That's a very good question.
and what fats do you use to
For cooking.
cook?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Right, so in terms of meats with a bit of fat on them, if you want to eat, I would cook them with the fat on, and if you want to eat the fat, do, and if you don't want to eat the fat, don't. And when you've got fat on your body to lose, and this isn't a particularly high fat plan, but some people manage it, we're all highly individual, so some people manage it with plenty of healthy fat. Some people have things called bulletproof coffee where they've got coconut oil added. Some people put quite a lot of cream on their strawberries, this sort of thing. But what I find is that if people have got a lot of weight to lose, they should have just enough fat so that it tastes nice and so they don't feel they're depriving themselves. Because if you go low carb and low fat, especially ultra low carb, ultra low fat, it's not much fun. Whereas if you say you had a breakfast of 2 eggs, 1 piece of bacon, for instance, and some spinach, that wouldn't contain too much fat. That would be okay. And if you had lunch, which was, say, a tuna salad or a mackerel salad or something like that, that wouldn't contain. That would have some fat from the fish, great, good fat, healthy fat. And an evening meal of a little bit of meat and some vegetables. When I say a little bit, palm of your hand sized piece of meat or fish, and some vegetables. That's not got much fat on it. Now, some people will do this at first to make it tasty by adding some melted butter or cooking things in coconut oil. So, do you want to drink water?
Yeah, there's some
Shall I go to the kitchen and get some?
Yes,
Sorry,
if you wouldn't mind,
being a
that's great. You've seen the kitchen. Yeah. So while we're waiting, has anybody got any observations about fats? Anybody who's been doing this group for a while, what sort of fats they use in their cooking? Coconut oil. Have you all seen coconut oil? Have you seen it in the shops?
Some special offer at Aldi.
Is it? How much is it?
It's about £3.85 for a big tubful.
Yeah. Oh right. Okay.
I've got some, but I haven't opened it yet.
Yeah. So it's called coconut oil, but it's actually solid at room temperature. It's like a white and solid substance. Yeah. So coconut oil is fine, but I think some of you will want to use, as long as you're achieving your goals week to week. I will say it in a minute when Jill comes back. Yeah, when Jill comes back. So if people overdo the oil, they can just stop. They can just not lose weight. So as long as you're losing at least £1 a week, that's fine. But if you're not, I wouldn't overdo the cut back on the fat. That's lovely. Thanks, Jill. That's great. So Jill, when you were right, I was just asking if anybody, what sort of fats people used who'd been doing this programme for a while, and they were talking about using coconut oil, which is on special offer from Aldi, which is quite a solid one. So you can actually use, this might be a showstopper, you can actually use lard if you want. Imagine, but I don't know anybody who uses lard.
Still sell it?
Yeah, they do, yeah, it's like 35p. Yeah.
Can I use that spray one for that? Alright.
Yeah, do you use this low fat spray? Is it low fat spray? Or olive oil spray? Olive oil spray. Is it? Yeah, so olive oil's fine, absolutely fine, and people use it more for dressings than for cooking because it's got a lower smoke point than coconut oil. But lard's fine if you want to, if you're not scared of it. As long as your cholesterol, you see, as long as your cholesterol's fine, doesn't matter, does it? As long as your weight's going down, fine. And you're not going to use very much of it because you'll think, oh, lard. So I'll have a little tiny bit off the side. But when you're wanting to lose weight, you have enough fat so that it tastes tasty and you don't feel you're depriving yourself. So a little bit of melted butter on your vegetables can be nice and make you feel like it's a proper meal. Whereas if you have just dry vegetables and meat, it can be a bit sort of, and there's something about looking after yourself, nourishing yourself and feeling you're really having a nice meal. So there's something about a nice big plate of vegetables and a little bit of meat or fish, like 3 or 4 ounces, and some sort of dressing on it, whether it's mayonnaise or whether it's a little bit of olive oil or whether you've done a stir fry with coconut oil. All of those things will make it into a tasty, filling meal.
If you have got high cholesterol, Jan, do you need to cut down on the fats or just...
Well, that's a very good question, Jeannie. So,
mine's 8.7 at the minute.
Yes.
They're wanting to put me on statins and they
Yeah.
don't.
Well, it depends on what your good cholesterol is and what your triglyceride is. So if you want to send me an email with your readings, I'll tell you. But basically, if people have already got high cholesterol, sometimes it normalises with this. 90% of people's cholesterol gets better with this way of eating. So if you started doing it and you have your cholesterol checked again, your lipids, all of them. If it gets better, great. You don't need to do anything, it doesn't matter. But if it got worse, then it's the dairy ones, that's the dairy foods you can cut back on. So if you like do it more sort of based on fish and vegetables rather than a lot of dairy, because some people can really overdo the dairy, and if you cut back on the dairy, then that usually rights your cholesterol.
But if you're not losing weight, could you cut back on things like not putting butter on
It's
things?
exactly
not
right.
putting coconut oil on
Yes.
the coconutty breakfast so much.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that you've hit the nail on the head. If you're not losing weight, it's the fat you need to cut back on a little bit. Yeah, and just don't overdo it because some people definitely overdo the fat. And I was lucky. I didn't give it a lot of thought. I just thought, well, I'll add fat to things. So I would have had melted butter on my vegetables. I seem to remember when I did it at first, I had an awful lot of vegetables. But it worked for me, and my weight went down to, I got too thin for a while, and then I did, that was okay. But then I put a bit more back on, and it was fine. So if it's not working for you, definitely cut back on the fat because you don't need much fat. I don't want you to go hungry on this, but you don't need to add much fat to things. You don't need to have bulletproof coffees. You don't need to have lots of cream on strawberries. I'd suggest if you have strawberries, have single cream and just a touch, just enough to make them tasty. You don't need to overdo it.
What about pulses?
Well, that's a very good point. Pulses are quite heavy in carbs. So, are any vegetarians here? No. So, they're I'd say twice a week, as a sort of roughly, if you're going to have a pulses. Yeah, chickpeas are better than lentils. So, if I just have a look in here, see how quick it is. Chickpeas, 287. So, chickpeas, you can have quite a lot. You can see here. So that's quite a lot. Is only 6 grams. But I guess that's a meal. You know, if you had that and some vegetables, you're going to be onto your 10 grams with that, aren't you? Lentils. There we go. It's opened at lentil curry. Now this is the thing. It's going to really overload you. If you have lentil curry, you're only going to have salad with that because it's already 37 grams, and that's your meal. So some people do actually get into the way of having 1 or 2 meals a day. And the other ones have got very, very little carbs in them, like maybe 1 or 2 grams. Some people, after a while of doing this, they're not so dependent on eating food every sort of 2 or 3 hours. They eat less often. So if, and it's big if you were just having 1 meal in a day, or if for some reason you had to have a lentil curry, it is quite a lot of carbs. It's 37 grams for that, just for that plate. And that's without your rice. Okay, so you'd be having it with cauliflower rice.
Yeah, because lentils is normally a side dish if you have a curry, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, unless you had it. Some people do have it as a main if they're vegetarian. So yes, lentils I'd say roughly twice a week, and don't have too many of them, and don't have them with rice. Yeah. There is, you'll see there's something in the middle of the table there called the Grain Brain Whole Life Plan. So that's about wellness. It's a plan which is 30. If you wanted to follow it, it's 30 grams of carbs a day roughly, and there are recipes in it, and there are ideas about relaxation and sleep and vitamin supplements if you need them, and all sorts of things, which is very nice.
Can I ask another question?
Of course you can.
If you really like potatoes and you have like 1 per fortnight of a roast potato, is it gonna, you know, or if you went out for a cake once a month and have a small piece of it and you get the rest, would that be okay?
That's a lovely question. That's a really nice question. Well, yes. Say you're well onto your plan and you're losing £1 or 2 a week and everything's going swimmingly well. You know, if the only thing that's going to happen if you have half a piece of cake is that you might not lose weight that week. But if you've already lost, you know, a couple of stone, and you know you're not going to fall off the wagon and go back to eating cake all the time, well, half a piece of cake's going to be, you know, going to be fine. And the same goes with potatoes. You know, if you actually can with this carb counter, you could actually get yourself under 30 grams a day and include potatoes if you wanted, but obviously you'd have very small quantities of potatoes, and you would have to cut back on something else. But you could do.
Didn't you say about the 10? I'm living by the 10%. You said last week 10%. You said it. I wrote it down. I calculated how many meals that would be. And the 10%. I've done the 10%.
Yeah. There is something about the reason it's a lifestyle and not a diet is that we do say see if you can stick to it 90% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your potato or your small slice of cake.
Yeah.
Can I say on that? The other thing I started doing, because I did like cakes, when I saw this hypnotherapist, I said to her, please don't make me not like cakes. I want the odd one as a treat. And she said to me, you've got to start changing your way of thinking to do with what a treat is.
Yes.
She said, if a treat is something that's going to make you ill, make your body ache, make you feel down because you don't like your body image, is it a treat? Yes. And it made me start thinking, well, that's not a treat.
That's such a good point,
She then started to say to me, what else could you think of as a treat? She wasn't just a hypnotherapist, she was, you know, doing a lot of talking as well. And it made you really think what a treat was. And I said to her, well, I really like a steak. And she said, well, treat yourself, instead of buying a cake, have a really nice steak and think, tonight I'm going to have steak. Like a T-bone with a little bit of fat in. Yes. And it really was good. But when I went out for a cake, sometimes afterwards, when I really thought I really fancy a cake, I'd sometimes with a meal said to my husband, this is your way of helping me, and I'd have a pudding and I'd choose the pudding, and then I'd have a couple of teaspoons, and then I'd think, I'm not that bothered, that's all right, I've done it now. And I'd pass it to him and he'd eat the rest. Yeah. Or if I went to Dingle Farm for a cake, I get a piece of cake, I'd scrape most of the fondant off, put it on the side, and I'd eat it and it didn't taste any different because you don't need all that sugar taste.
No.
But just having that little bit is just the same.
Yeah. Well, those are great ideas. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Can I tell you another?
Go on then.
When I went out for a meal, I'd always say I'd look at the menu and think, right, well, I like steak as much as ribs. And I'd think, well, steak, tomato, mushroom, chips, that's all right. Or I'd think, I'll have ribs, but I'll ask them to cook it with the sauce separate. Because some places can if they're a good place. So they'd always do my sauce separate, and then I'd put the tiniest bit of sauce on, or I'd dip it in, and you'd find you'd have loads of sauce left. And when I got a plate, when I got my plate, I'd look and think, I've paid for that, so I need to eat it, because we think that. But portion sizes are massive now. So I'd just always ask for an empty plate, and I'd put most of the chips on there, and then I'd just eat my meal with a few chips, and then I'd think, do I need any more chips? And most of the time I just leave them.
Well, those are very good suggestions, and if you combine that with the idea about doing it 90% of the time, the chief aim is that you will achieve your goals, which would be weight loss and blood sugar normalisation, and then all the things that come out of that, like less tired, more energy, fitting into your clothes better, going on holiday, being more relaxed, whatever.
One more thing.
Yes.
Taking the blood things after every meal. I'm having trouble actually getting enough squeezed blood out to go onto the end of the little strip, and you've got to get the blood things, the needle point things, whatever they're called.
Yes.
That's another thing you've got to have, because trying to do it 8 times with one needle isn't good. Your fingers start to go itchy.
Yes.
So even though you've been trying to clean it and everything, but I've only got like 10 of those to go before we go, and hopefully I've just got a batch today, otherwise I'm not going to be able to do it all.
Yes, you're going to need more stabbers for a while until you actually learn what the effects of different foods, and then once you've learned it all, then you don't need to do it.
The blood?
Is there any knack?
I used to squeeze at the bottom rather than try and.
Yes. Yeah, squeeze the bottom to actually get more blood stuck in.
Hold your finger down and squeeze it at the bottom.
Hold
your
your
finger
finger down.
down.
I thought that one.
Does it make a difference if you have hands like that rather than like that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I haven't put enough blood on the little tender thing,
Yes.
it'll come up with E3.
Yes. Yes.
And that means
Yeah.
you've got to do it all again.
It's a big faff,
And it's
isn't it?
wasted
It's a
as
big
well.
faff. So try that, holding it down.
Yeah.
Is it only the diabetics that you're wanting to check the sugar, or everybody in the group?
Yes, so just the diabetics, and with the pre-diabetics we'll go on the HbA1c, and actually all of you, if you want to have your HbA1c checked, it will probably improve. It'd be nice to show a difference, so that's fine by me. So the final thing is just about, you'll see on the website, if you look up week 8, you'll see various links there. And one of them is about what you take away on holiday if you're travelling. And I actually picked these things up in the centre, thinking about, there were things that you could pick up and you could easily take travelling. Somebody else said hard-boiled eggs, they're pretty good. But when you go travelling is one of the times when it's almost impossible to get nice low-carb food. And so taking some nice low-carb food with you when you're travelling is very important.
And avocados.
Eggs and avocados. Well, those are really good ideas.
And slices of meat.
Yeah. Well, you think avocados have got the shell on them, great. Eggs have got the shell on them, so they're not messy to take along. And these things are packets, obviously, you could buy in M&S and other supermarkets, but none of them should raise your blood sugar significantly. So that's the idea behind them.
So sliced meats like that, they're not classed as processed then?
Well, this one, it depends on the quality, doesn't it? So these ones are, no, they're not. Those are just like, if you bought a roast beef and roasted it yourself and sliced it, obviously it's expensive to buy them like this. And if you buy your own joint and do it yourself, that's great. And if you're going on holiday, that would be fine. And the sausages are definitely processed, but I put them in as an example of something that won't particularly raise your blood sugar. It's not a health food, but it is something to eat. If you're on the hop and you're
What
desperate.
about those Polish sausages? They seem to have giant quantity of fat in them, like 22 grams or something.
I don't.
Wow.
Yeah. The ones that are made of proper meat are the best, and obviously other things are better, like you said, avocados and hard-boiled eggs. So that'll be much better. So that's an hour gone. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. The next one is in 2 weeks. If any of you have got any questions, please feel free to stay behind afterwards.
2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks today.